Since 2017, Pokémon GO live events have been the most iconic and exciting part of the game. It's what sets Pokémon GO apart from literally every other video game in existence. From the Mewtwo release in Japan, to GO Fest in Chicago, to the Hoenn Tour Las Vegas, these amazing events have been the pinnacle of gameplay experience. Until now, new changes are coming to the way that Pokémon GO hosts major in-person events that might nerf them forever. So to understand what's going on and what's changing, you gotta understand what Pokémon GO live events are. A live event is any major in-person event hosted by Pokémon GO in a specific location. So, for example, last year we had Safari Zone Sevilla, Spain, GO Fest Berlin, GO Fest Seattle, Safari Zone Singapore, and a few others. All of which, by the way, were absolutely incredible events, some of the best ever. And they all garnered tens of millions of views across YouTube and on other social media platforms. Why? Pokémon GO live events are the single best in-game experiences possible. There are incredible spawns, including new, rare, and shiny Pokémon. Eggs usually have amazing hatches, there's big and exclusive raid bosses, tons of lured up Pokestops with Pokémon spawns everywhere, and thousands of trainers walking around playing. Every aspect of the game is on steroids, making it as exciting as possible. Over my 7 years of playing Pokémon GO, all of my favorite in-game and out-of-game memories surrounding the game have been at these live events. And if you ask anyone who's attended, they'll typically say the same, unless you were at GO Fest 2017, which didn't really work. Although the release of the world's first legendary raids there was one of Pokémon GO's most iconic moments. So with these events being so fun and successful, why would they be nerfed? Recently, a new kind of live event was debuted in Seoul, South Korea, City Safari events. These are basically like Safari Zone events where special Pokémon are spawning with higher shiny rates, but instead of the gameplay being confined to a certain specific park, players can enjoy the gameplay from throughout the entire city. Sounds great, right? And conceptually it is. Starting at GO Fest events last year, Pokémon GO split up the live event days in half. Half of the day in the GO Fest park and half out in the city. And this actually worked super well and players loved it. Previously at live events, the entire gameplay experience would be crammed into one park, like GO Fest Chicago, where the entire event was played inside of Lincoln Park. But by allowing players to play the event throughout the entire city, it gives access to the event to more people and gives everyone much more space to explore. Everybody wins! And that was the thought behind the new City Safari live events, which will essentially be replacing the popular Safari Zone events, according to a press release by Niantic at a recent City Safari event in Barcelona. So what's the problem, and why am I making this super dramatic video? What's happening is something we've been seeing since the beginning of 2023, a strong and steady decline in the overall experience of Pokémon GO. Key parts of the game continue to get stripped, while new things are added that just aren't all that exciting. An unfortunate trend due to many factors that is now happening to one of the best things about Pokémon GO, live events. For this to make sense, I need to explain a little bit more about City Safari events, because they're not all bad. Actually, they're kind of great. Definitely a great thing for the game and something that I hope we see more of. But ironically, at the same time, they kind of represent the slow death of Pokémon GO, in a way. So I attended the first ever City Safari event in Seoul, South Korea, and had a pretty good time playing it. Going into the event, I was essentially basing my expectations off of past Safari Zone events, which is kind of what this new event is meant to be and meant to replace. But overall, myself and many others were left a bit disappointed. The featured Pokémon list had some new cool things like the new shiny Skidoo and some shiny Unknown, but other than that, the spawns weren't all that exciting. There were also no special raids, and since the event was hosted in the entire city, the spawns were kind of spread out and weren't really all that great. What this event felt like was more of a glorified community day rather than a Safari Zone. And the hype that always surrounds the big Safari Zone events just wasn't really there for the City Safari. To show that, we're gonna look at this event through the lens of me, a YouTuber. So I understand most people don't really consider this stuff at all, or maybe don't think it's important, but it's extremely important to me and to every other creator, and it's usually a pretty good gauge of hype and popularity. If you look back over the years to Safari Zone event videos from all of the creators, they have hundreds of thousands to millions of views. People love watching these videos and events, and they're even more exciting to play. But when looking at the performance of the recent City Safari videos, it's a completely different story. Zoe Two Dots, who literally said to not base the experience off of her, only ended with a handful of shinies throughout the 2 days. And looking at her video performance, the video did fine for her, but nothing extraordinary. Trainer Tips, one of the largest creators, didn't even make a video playing the event. The Trainer Club managed a solid 12 shinies on day 1, fun. And in his own words,
overall review of the day, okay? So it had the egg hatch bonuses and everything like that, which was great. The shiny rates were not crazy good for me. As far as the Eevee with the safari hat, I thought that we were gonna be able to get multiple chances. We only got a grand total of 8 chances to be able to get that shiny. And I just felt like it was missing some type of like a little bit more structure while we are in the city, and that's cool. It was a little bit challenging to navigate the city, and the fact that the Eevee stops are throughout the city and helping you explore is cool, but at the same time I was expecting like, oh, we go all this way to get to this Eevee stop. Instead of it contributing towards the time to research, I thought that it was going to give us maybe some Eevee field research. Overall, cool to play in a different place. Would I say that it was totally worth it to travel all that distance to here? I would say that probably that would be not for me.
He then made a video a week after the event talking about if the city safari events were worth going to, and ultimately his answer was no. The reasons? Low shiny rates, the featured Pokemon weren't really all that exciting, no special raids worth being in the area for, and low spawn rates. And all the content he made about this event and around playing this event performed about the same as his other videos. Brandon Ton91, one of the world's top players, also attended the event, but now he doesn't really grind these big in-person events, he just uses it as an opportunity to meet with the community. He's a man of the people, I freaking respect it. And his videos actually performed pretty well despite not really grinding, so good for Brandon. JT Valor went to the Barcelona event and grinded both days, netting an impressive 20 plus shinies each day, so it definitely was possible to do, but even his videos with some of the highest shinies caught out of anybody performed around his average viewership. Other major creators like Pokedaxy, JT Gilly, and Fleece King didn't even attend the event. And my videos that I made also performed pretty decent, but nothing really extraordinary, which is a stark difference from my Go Fest and Safari Zone content. Then the Barcelona City Safari event was kind of a similar situation. Only a handful of people flew out to record and play it, and Mexico seems like even less creators are going to. Now to me, as a creator and someone whose job it is to cover the hyped, exciting, fun things of this game, this tells me that these events just aren't really that great, not really that exciting, and something that people aren't super interested in. Which was honestly the feedback a lot of people gave. A really fun event to play if you're in the area, but nothing worth flying around the world for. Now that's a huge difference from the Safari Zone events. People would fly in from all over the world to play them, and they would leave super satisfied and happy that they did. Okay, so yeah, YouTube videos do better for Safari Zone events, and people aren't super hyped about City Safari. And the City Safari events aren't as good as the Safari Zone events. So what? The important thing here is the decision to move from these big, awesome, hyped events that just gets the community pumped to lower effort events that people don't really care much about. And just from a personal angle, as one of the OG creators for Pokemon Go, it's kind of sad. Over the past 7 years, I've traveled to nearly every single Pokemon Go live event all over the world and have made amazing videos and memories doing so. But after my experience with the first City Safari event, I can pretty confidently say I probably won't be traveling around flying to hunt these. Which again, for me personally is sort of sad just because this has been such a big part of my life and my content over the last couple of years. Kind of feels like a closing of a chapter in my life. Man, I traveled everywhere and caught everything in Pokemon Go, and it just kind of doesn't make sense to do if the events are really mid. Now, shifting out of my personal life and experience, what does this actually mean for the game? Some good and some bad things, which were revealed in a press debrief with Niantic in Barcelona at the City Safari event. One of the major topics, will City Safari events replace Safari Zone events? I know I've been saying the entire time that they are doing that, but what did Niantic have to say about it? They answered by saying, Niantic is constantly experimenting with new event concepts, and Safari Zone type of event is currently on pause. They are not canceled, but the focus is on City Safari type of event right now. And for those of you who do not speak corporate PR, that basically roughly translates to City Safari events are replacing Safari Zone events. Niantic then explained why they're doing this. City Safaris allow lighter footprint event that still has the same enticing in-game bonuses that draws players to travel to a location, but without the whole logistical nightmare that is Go Fest and Safari Zone, which seems a bit out of touch because the event bonuses and incentives as a part of the City Safaris aren't really worth traveling around for, kind of like the Safari Zone events were, but that's the whole idea for them here. It's a similar enough experience that's much cheaper and easier to produce, sacrificing quality for ease, which has been the main theme of Pokemon Go all 2023, which is why I think the game and community feels so dead. Now, there are absolutely some huge upsides of the City Safari events that Niantic did touch on that I completely agree with. There's a huge economic impact on the cities that the events are hosted inside of, and players both locally and regionally are able to explore an area that they're maybe new to or haven't seen much of through Pokemon Go. City Safari events are a great idea. I'm really happy they're in Pokemon Go, and I'm excited to see more of them. I just want to make that clear. We'll talk about that later. Because Niantic went on to say, we want to make sure that people traveling all over the world to Barcelona City Safari have a chance to experience the entire city. Why just corral them into one location if they can experience the entire city? Which I do agree with to a certain extent. But you have to remember that people are traveling there for the event too, not just for Barcelona. Which is why last year's Go Fest format was literally perfect. Half of the event was inside the park, the other half was out inside the city. And personally, if the gameplay inside of the park is significantly better than it is inside of the city, I'd rather play in the park. Which was actually the opposite during the Go Fest in Japan this year in Osaka. The park sucked and the city was really good. It was very confusing. In-game bonuses make it well worth the trip, especially if you extend your stay for a couple of days, especially if you consider that the list of Pokemon is catered to Barcelona, featuring Skiddo, Gible, and Relicanth. Okay, again, this feels a bit out of touch because the spawns and bonuses in Korea just were not really worth the expensive flight it was to get out there. But if you're in the area, this is the difference here, it's definitely worth it. And for sure, Pokemon like Skiddo, Gible, Relicanth, definitely rare shinies worth grabbing. But you have to remember that at these city safari events, catching the featured and rare shiny Pokemon is much harder to do than at Safari Zone events. Overall shiny rates and spawns, way lower. Eevee with Safari Hat is a fun collectible that was integrated to the journey throughout the city, with the goal of making them relatively difficult to get unless you explore the entire city. Visiting Eevee Explorer Pokestops makes it possible to get Safari Hat Eevee, but you have to work for it. Oh, I actually completely forgot to cover this part, so I'm glad she mentioned it. Okay, this whole exclusive Explorer Eevee thing was kind of another huge problem with city safari events. For starters, when the event was initially announced, the exclusive Eevee was a huge part of it and a big reason why people were excited about this event. Most people assumed it would spawn in the wild. I did too. But days after the initial announcement, Niantic added in small text onto the website that explained that you could only catch the Explorer Eevee through special research. And they didn't announce this change either. This was nowhere but on the website. So for starters, just to kick things off, this kind of annoyed a lot of people. Then when playing through the actual event itself, this exclusive Eevee, which was kind of a main target for a lot of people, wasn't really an exciting incentive at all. Since it was through special research, you only had 9 encounters with it. So even if you flew out there to hunt it and try to catch it like Niantic's saying, you couldn't even grind for it. There was no way to work for it. All you had to do is just kind of walk around and spin Pokestops, and you were gonna do that anyways. This part definitely drained a lot of fun of the grindiness of the event, because myself and many others were really looking forward to hunting this specific Pokemon, which is kind of what these events are about, right? Like hunting the specific rare exclusive shinies. It's a huge draw and incentive, which was a weird choice with the research. Not really sure what the play was here. For future events feedback, it'd be great to be able to hunt those in field research so that you can actually grind and play for the shiny and not just pray to RNGesus that you get it in a 1 out of 9 chance. Okay, then the big question was asked, will city safari events replace Pokemon Go's crown jewel, Go Fest? Thankfully, the answer was no, thankfully. And apparently there's already something Go Festy planned for 2024, so that is a huge relief. And there's actually already another city safari event announced, Taiwan. I attended the Taiwan Safari Zone years back. It was fantastic, super epic event for its time. I will not be going to this one, unfortunately. Now, the reason why this is such good news, and obviously I've been dunking on city safari events the entire time, but again, I think they're great and amazing, and I'm really excited to see that they're gonna be more frequent in more places, because for people who are in the area, in the local or regional area, this is a really cool thing to have. It's basically kind of like a glorified community day. A fun little weekend event to grind if you happen to be in the area. So the fact that there's gonna be more city safari events in more places is incredible. Super happy. More people get to experience it, and more people get cool, exciting events coming to their local areas without having to fly to specific locations like Seville and Singapore. I love that. All in. What I don't love is the fact that safari zones will now be a thing of the past, replaced by something that is easier, cheaper, and a lot less fun. And that's my main gripe with this whole thing. Again, I've got nothing against the city safari events. It's this, the constant shaving away of every aspect of Pokemon Go that makes the game unique, exciting, and fun. It feels like the life has just been consistently sucked out of the game all 2023, starting mainly with the remote raid pass nerf. I mean, kind of it started back when they were rolling back the COVID bonuses, but they said they were gonna do that. I still think that was a bad idea. But since the remote raid pass nerf of February of 2023, hundreds of Niantic employees were fired. Most updates since then have had bugs and things wrong with them, and all the new and apparently exciting features that have been released have all kind of flopped, like routes, which were a complete failure upon release because the feature wasn't even done when it was launched. And nobody really talks about them anymore, and not many people care about the feature at all. Why? It's simply not that fun, and the incentives aren't that great. Just like the brand new showcase feature, elite raids, the party up feature, new paid timed research that's a part of every single event, and now the city safari events. You see what I'm saying? Niantic feels extremely disconnected from the game, and they're focusing a lot more on saving money and time than on making the game better, bigger, and more exciting to play. And to go back to a personal note, making videos on this game is my literal full-time job. So when these things start happening frequently, it makes me a little concerned about my future as a content creator, especially one for Pokemon Go, which is why I've been putting in so much time, effort, energy, and money into the new YouTube channel and business, Mystic Rips, because truly I really believe in the excitement and fun and longevity of the Pokemon company and the Pokemon brand, just not so much in the current direction that Niantic is taking Pokemon Go. Now, I understand this video is super dramatic and most people don't even go to the Safari Zone events, so like, who really cares? But I do think this echoes a really important trend that's happening with Pokemon Go that, I don't know, I kind of hate to see. So if you do have thoughts about this, leave them down in the comment section below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.